So the game's just ended. Pompey nil, Stoke 1. Scrappy game. Disappointing result. 0-0 would have been a reasonable score. Neither team's strikers or attack-minded midfielders actually managed to do anything notable. The goal was an own goal. We're not quite clear still whether Matthews injured himself just before he got a shaky header on the ball and it went into his own net, or whether the injury happened afterwards and was almost exacerbated by the fact that perhaps he felt foolish, which he had no need to do because his job was to get his head on the ball. It was a swirly wind. The flags were flying horizontally. Difficult to judge the ball in the air. The ball spent too much time in the air. It was an airborne game. I mean, sometimes it was head tennis with people taking it in turns to head it 10 and 15 and 20 yards in the air, almost vertically, and then dropping for somebody else to do the same thing and head the ball vaguely in the opposite direction, the direction of the goal that they were attacking, but with no great purpose, no skill to it, no guile, nothing impressive about it. It was head it that way, head it that way. There was a lot of that. There was a lot of scrapping, with Pompey coming off just, I think, second best with the 50-50s, the one-on-ones, and didn't make much use of what second ball they did manage to pick up. So it was a scrappy old game of football on a scrappy day weather-wise. The cold has started to bite now. That shouldn't make any difference to what goes on the pitch. The crowd were in reasonably good voice for a large part of the game. And there was some optimism that we were going to get something from it. You have to remember that in the last 4 games, we have played the Championship leaders, the Championship second side, and at this moment in time, which is 10 minutes before the kick-off of the 3 p.m. games, Stoke are lying third in the Championship, but obviously teams around them have a game in hand. And Leicester, who's the fourth of the 4 teams that we have just finished a run of games against, Leicester are one of the fancied sides in the Championship. They're the moneybag side. They're the side that pays their players the most wages. They're the most highly valued squad, I should say, in the Championship. So this is who we've been up against 4 games in a row. And 4 points, is it, from those 4 games? It is not bad. Not against opposition of that calibre. We must remember that. We mustn't get down in the dumps. Although, again, at this moment in time, we are now, I think, 17th in the Championship, and we're 4 or 5 points off the relegation zone. We're still a lot better off than we were last season at this point, but it's disappointing having made such a good start to the season, a solid start to the season that had heads turning and had people talking. And we had our own players talking to journalists saying that now we're looking above us rather than below us. Well, that didn't last too long, did it? And I'm not saying that kind of optimism can be responsible for a dip in form, but there are those that think it might. You don't tempt the gods. Who played well today? Well, Kirk got into some good positions. He looks as though he's got an edge to him. One of the things that we like about him is that he's an athlete. He's got quick feet. He's got fast muscles. He travels with balance and with purpose, and you wouldn't want him hunting you down. He can get in behind defenders, but they often read it because Championship defenders, particularly the top sides, they've seen it all before. But he did get in some good positions, and he had 1 or 2 opportunities, and he, more than anybody else, will be disappointed. Well, I say that. The faithful are all extremely disappointed, so he's going to have to be extremely, extremely disappointed not to have got a toe on a couple of those little chances which presented themselves. But on the whole, he was, what is it John Mousinho likes to say? He influenced the team. Colby Bishop playing a bit deeper, obviously, with not alongside, in fact, actually, in a supporting role to Kirk. Didn't manage to impose himself on the game, I think, as much as he would have liked and as much as he is capable of doing. It's obvious that he has it in him to play that slightly deeper role. If John Mousinho thinks so, John Mousinho is rarely wrong. And therefore he has it in him to play that role. But he was a bit anonymous during the game against Stoke. Yang was bullied. Min Hyuk Yang, when he arrived, he showed quite a bit of determination. And he stood up for himself a couple of times when he was being knocked around a little bit. There's not a lot of him. But then again, there's not a lot of Josh Murphy, and we'll come on to that in just a second, obviously, because that was most elevating, wasn't it? Exciting, his contribution. We'll do it in a minute. But I know that you, dear listener, agree with me that he was, even though he was only on the pitch for a fifth of the game, something like that, he was our best player. Actually, by a bit of a distance. So it shows you what we've been missing. It shows you what Colby Bishop's been missing. It shows you now Kirk has learned what it is to get that consistently good ball into the box, into the 6-yard box. That is Murphy's trademark, besides his tremendous speed. Yang was bullied. He tried to fight back. He couldn't make any of his turns. They were on him, all over him like a rash. They were big, hard men who it was difficult to shift. When they were immediately behind you and harassing you and you're facing the wrong way and you've got the ball, they start roughing you up, basically, and staying just this side of a whistle. So he wasn't able to impose himself, Yang, and it seemed increasingly likely as the second half got underway, as both teams got their teeth into the second half, that if anybody was coming off for Josh Murphy, it would be Yang Min Hyuk. And that's what happened, isn't it? Chaplin still not asserting himself as he's able to, for whatever reason, playing out of position, playing with a new team, playing with the pressure on him, pressure of expectation, trying to live up to the hype that attended his arrival at Pompey, the excitement that everybody was very, very open and outward about when he arrived. Must have made him feel like $1 million. But at the moment, he's only playing like a $900,000 player at best. So there's more to come from Chaplin. There's no doubt about that. Marlon Pack put himself about, and when he puts himself about, everybody else on the other side are aware that Marlon Pack is about. He is an imposing figure. He's an imposing tackler. And although there are those who say he's lost half a yard because he is now 34, then that doesn't matter too much, because as he has said once, and he only says things once, he only needs to say it once, as he has said a few weeks ago, pace was never really a part of my game. And he didn't need it very much this afternoon. I'm talking to you immediately after the final whistle. Didn't really need it very much this afternoon because he was always in the right place. So he's nailed on. Tell you who else is nailed on, as ever. Ogilvie was Ogilvie. That sums it up. How did Ogilvie play? Like Ogilvie plays. It's rewarding. There's no great finesse about it, but what there is application, dedication, determination, and he does the right thing, the professional thing, the proper footballing thing, almost every time he's involved. He makes the tackle, he does the covering. When he has the ball in possession and people are snapping at his ankles, he will manage to get off a pass that keeps possession. If he has an opportunity to go down the line either with the ball at his feet or thread a pass down the line, and he clearly has a good relationship with Murphy, and we're looking forward to that blossoming once again. He hasn't quite got that relationship with Yang yet, so there's a challenge there for him, which he possibly won't have to face for a while now. That's to say, if Murphy can stay fit, which is a big if. But Connor Ogilvie, somebody overheard John Messino saying way back that if he's fit, Ogilvie is always the first name on his team sheet. And he's come through the trial by fire of playing in the Championship, which apparently even he wasn't certain he'd be able to pull off. And he's come through it absolutely, smelling of roses. So Ogilvie, yeah, that's what you say about Ogilvie. He was Ogilvie. Matthews had class. We'd heard a rumour that Josh Knight was injured. But did he not come on when Matthews had to come off? So he wasn't injured. He was, to use a word, the D word, dropped, which we don't use. We don't like people being dropped. They simply start on the bench. We don't like the word dropped because players who have that word attached to them by the press obviously feel a little bit diminished. These are human beings. They have normal human emotions. It doesn't matter how strong you are mentally. Some things hurt. And so I think if Knight had to be protected from the notion that he'd been dropped because he dropped a goalie when that second goal went in for Coventry. And you can't have that. Maybe he'd also been a little bit short in a couple of other areas, covering or aerial combats or tackling or whatever. And John Messino felt that the staff wanted a bit more time to work with him to bring him up to the standard that we have expected and received from the likes of Poole and Shaughnessy. And when he went down, Matthews, and we thought that maybe Knight wasn't 100%, and Shaughnessy is still out for several weeks, maybe a couple of months, we're back to where we were last season with only one centre-half. Before the game, I got a text from Steve Bone saying, of course, Knight's injured. He's one of our centre-halves, isn't he? There wasn't an appropriate emoji for me to reply to that message with, because I wanted somebody who was crying with irony, because it's quite a good remark, and there's a lot in it. In my view, Matthews needs a bit of bulk and a bit more bite, and a bit of bulk will give him a bit more bite. He's a lean, hungry kid, but we understand that Farrell, for example, has beefed up, put on a stone, I read, since during the period of recuperation from, he's now on his second injury, isn't he? But the manager has said, let's get you fit, let's keep you fit. That's your challenge. We know you can play football. We just want you to be fit. But he's bulked up, so it can be done. And if it's done with the right guidance and the right nutritional advice and what have you, then it works, hopefully. Maybe they could look at Matthews for the same sort of programme, because he's quick and he's tall and he's good on the ball. And he's not going to lose any of those things if he weighs in at 13 stone instead of 11 and a bit or whatever he is. I thought Regan Poole got rattled from time to time. I think he felt a little bit vulnerable because he's onto his third playing partner now in 4 or 5 games. He doesn't like that. Centre-halves don't. That's not a quirk of Regan Poole. They like to develop a relationship. You know, they're like Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid, or Doc Holliday and Wyatt Earp. They like to hunt in pairs to do their dirty deeds of breaking up attacks. So I didn't think Poole looked distracted. I think he felt an additional responsibility towards Matthews, which may just have infiltrated a little bit of uncertainty into his game. But it was still an 8 out of 10 for sure. Maybe a 7.9 out of 10 for me, for Regan Poole. Bursick didn't have much to do except pick the ball out of the net when he was finally beaten, not by one of their forwards. They didn't come close, I don't think. They didn't come close to scoring against us, their strikers, and ours didn't come close to striking and scoring against them. So, as I said before, I think 0-0 would have been a very fair result indeed. And they could have gone back off up north, whatever it is, 4.5, 5 hours, with something of a song in their heart. As it is, they were annoyingly vocal at the end of the game and delighted. And you understand that. We would have been if we'd had an 8-hour round trip and we'd come away with 3 points and we found ourselves third. We would have been vocal as well. So there was, they weren't taking it out on Pompey or the faithful at all with their elation. So we have to regroup now. There's plenty of things that we can start to look forward to. We've got ourselves a striker in Kirk, although he's still a bit green, but he's very determined. And when he kicked the ball away and got himself yellow carded, that was out of genuine frustration. And as long as he doesn't do that 5 games in a row and get suspended, we missed Swift, didn't we? We missed Swift. Sometimes you don't know what you've got until it's gone. That would make a good opening line for a song, wouldn't it? Oh, wait a minute, somebody did it. So Swift was sorely missed this afternoon. So maybe he could be just a little bit more careful with his yellow cards, and ditto Mackenzie Kirk. But we got a fine there, and now we have to bring him on. And it may not be until this time next season that we see him doing everything that he can do. But let's end with Josh Murphy. I mean, he'd not been on the pitch 4 or 5 minutes, and he'd already got 3 cracking crosses in. His trademark cross, where he gives it a little knock past the defender and gets his left foot swinging the ball in before the defender has a chance to stick out a leg and block it. And he has done that time and time again for us, and hopefully will do it time and time again for us. And either Bishop or Kirk will learn. Bishop will remind himself how Murphy crosses the ball, so where he needs to be when he sees Josh Murphy setting himself up to get one of those crosses in. So he was a 10. He was a 10. Maybe on a couple of occasions his first touch let him down, but they were difficult touches. And when you're a winger and you get a long ball coming to you and it's got a lot of air underneath it, and it's travelling not too quick, you know that the fullback is going to try and make contact with you and the ball as you try to collect it. So you're in a vulnerable position, and I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt and say that was the reason why on a couple of occasions his first touch didn't work. But he wanted it, and he was glad to be back, and he knows what he can do, and he can do it, and it happens. And so we have every reason to be reasonably optimistic going into this period. We'll look at the results as they come in at 5 o'clock in the afternoon to see where Pompey end up. It's possible for a number of teams to overtake us, including, annoyingly, that lot up the road. However, we don't worry too much about them. We let them worry about us. And now that we have got those games out of the way against the top 3 and one of the top-rated sides in the Championship, people with genuine Premier League pretensions, reasonable, if not very viable Premier League credentials. We've got that run of games, very sticky run of games, out of the way. We can knuckle down to it and average 2.2 points a game and get ourselves back thinking about the playoffs, but it's still early doors for that. Maybe next season. Scrappy game, windy game, very disappointing end result.